I want to ask Harry / Stephen Z and Humphrey to come up now. Come out of hiding, you know you're here somewhere. In the meantime, I want to thank you for coming. My name is Wolfgang Busch, and I have a company, New York New Rock, and I work Tuesday nights at the China Club. And I want to thank Emma. I want you to give a warm round of applause to Emma, who's put the promotion together for this wonderful seminar. And before I bore everybody to death, I want to introduce the panel, and I want to pass the word to them, and they can talk a little bit about their club policies, which is our one of our topics we want to talk about. Each club has different guidelines they work with. And to my far left, we have Michael O'Donohoe from Tramps.
Yeah, Mike.
So maybe, Michael, you can touch base a little bit what the Tramps policies are, so we know how we properly submit our tapes.
Well, I was hearing on that first, since I've never done this before. But inspiration comes from everywhere. From people we know, writers.
But, for example, Michael, you never heard of my band, and I really want you to book my band at Tramps. How can I go about it? Would you want me to submit the tape to you, or you have certain nights, certain different promoters working at the club?
Well, we mostly do roots music, which is somewhat different from rock music in terms of where you find it. In terms of tapes, I'd much rather see the band. Steve Weissman listens to tapes more.
Okay. So let's move next to Michael is Thom Jack. He is with Street Level, Underworld and Spiral. And hello, Thom.
Wie geht's, Wolfgang?
Danke, good. Let's continue in German.
Jawohl. Warum nicht?
Warum? Das ist mir recht. Gefällt mir gut.
Ja? Das ist schade.
Ah, nein, das ist nicht schade.
Das ist nicht so schlecht.
Nein.
All right, back in English. Yeah, I booked 3 rooms, Street Level, Underworld, and Spiral.
Do you still have a private life, by the way? I always wanted to know that.
Yeah, once a month I take a night out.
Ah, okay.
As far as booking bands, I like to hear the tape, but it's not all that necessary. With 3 rooms, I have a lot of nights. And usually my basic policy is I bring a band in on a weeknight, and if they do well, meaning if they play good music, if they bring enough people that I can afford to book them again, I put them on if they bring like 15 to 20 people, I'll put them on another good weeknight spot, like a Thursday or something. If they bring over that, then I'll give them a weekend at one of the clubs. Just listening to a tape doesn't really tell me a lot about the band, though. I've heard great tapes and seen some bands that didn't really live up to it. Or I've heard tapes that sounded awful, but I gave the band a chance, and they turned out to be like some of the best bands I've ever seen and I've ever had in the room. And they're like, repeat clientele of mine. Kind of. So the tape isn't really all that necessary. I'd rather see you come in, play, and just do your best. Show us what you can do. If you can bring enough people, if you're together people, if you're nice, if you're organized, if you show up on time, if you bring the right equipment. It's pretty much common sense. My booking and what I ask the bands to do, and the deal I have with most of my bands is if they respect me in the club, then we'll respect you, and we'll try to help you if you try to help us. And I go for the long term with most bands. A lot of bands I book now, I probably worked with for like 2 years, a year and a half, 2 years. But there's always new bands coming up that we establish a relationship with. It's a personal thing, and like I said, if you're a good person, you work hard, you do the right thing by us, we'll work hard and do the right thing by you. If you come across with the attitude that it's like, oh, scummy club promoters are going to try and jerk us around, rip us off and stuff like that, that's the kind of attitude you'll probably get back. I know that's what you'll get back from my establishments, and I can't speak for everybody else, but we try to respect you first, hoping that you respect us after that and do the right thing by us.
Okay, thank you, Thom. And next to me is Theri Kennedy. She has booked rooms like Marquee, what else? Limelight, Woody's. Basically, she's an independent agent that's been around town for several years now, and she has established quite a company with Sanctuary Productions. And Theri is currently working at Tilt. And what are your policies, Theri?
Well, first of all, I'd like to invite you all tomorrow night because it's the official opening night at Tilt. Just see me later on my guest list. Never hear business. Basically, I receive tapes. I listen to the whole tape, and then most of the time I'll go out and see the band, unless they're recommended to me from, one of my fellow promoters or a friend. And a lot of times when I start a band out, I'll put them in an early slot. If they're good, if they do their job, which means not booking 2 or 3 shows in 1 week, where they're hurting my club and the other clubs just for the sake of playing, they'll get my respect and they'll get better time slots and they'll get better gigs at most of the clubs. So that's that.
Okay. To my right is Chumley Twist, who is, besides an agent, I know he's involved in light show, all kinds of spectacular things, and DJing, and Chumley has been working at the bank. That's where I think he's been for a long time and doing all kinds of things there. Now he moved to Tilt as well, different nights. And what are your policies now, Chumley?
Well, I agree with...
Oh, there's Harry! Oh my God, there's Harry!
Hey.
Yay, let's give a warm welcome to Harry Slash. Join us over here, Harry. Other side. Harry, other side.
I go one way.
Oh, you can. Okay. All right.
Okay. My turn?
Yeah.
Okay, I agree, as far as policies, as to what most people said. If you do right by us, we do right by you, we have you back, and we do better, If a band does pull people, then we can talk about guarantees and whatever. We do start people off on a pass-by-pass basis, and the numbers aren't very important. A room like Tilt, you have a lot of staff. We have 2 sound people, a lighting person, and it's a fairly large room. It's not a bar type situation. It is a nightclub, and there's staff that has to be paid. The overhead is a bit high, and numbers are important, but it hasn't always been my concern. Of course, the music is a bit more important to me, putting together a bill that makes sense, opposed to a bill that's going to make me tons of money. It's always good to have a virtually unknown band open up for a band that's a bit bigger, gives them exposure, and just creates an all-round better bill. I've been booking on and off for about 5 or 6 years now, and I don't do it on a steady basis. Right now, I do 1 night a week, and on occasions I only do 2 shows a month. But each show I do, I really try my best to put together the best bill possible, musically as well as talent-wise, number-wise, sorry. Which I feel, the 2 go hand in hand. If someone comes down to see a band and they like the opening act and they've never heard of them, they'll come back. And I feel it's my responsibility to great bands as well. So that's my policy.
Well, I just want to get Harry updated. We are talking about the various club policies and specifically what you're looking for. And Harry was very much involved in Space at Jay's for a long time, and now he is, I'm sure, negotiating with something new. And Harry, why don't you tell us some of your policies, what you're looking for, and so forth?
As far as what I basically look for first in a band is professionalism and courtesy. Nobody's reached the status yet where Led Zeppelin and basically most of the clubs in New York are not Madison Square Gardens and treating it as such as a waste of your time and basically everybody else's. If a band is out there just to basically entertain the crowd, have a good time, and not look to be treated like rock stars, that's the main thing I look for, because basically everybody's on the same level right now, unsigned and struggling to survive in one of the hardest cities in the world. As far as music goes, I look for originality, and unfortunately sometimes we do have to look for the cliche, like on a certain evening where you have all hardcore bands, you may have to just throw in a band to fit the bill. Whether they happen to be of top standards or not sometimes is anyone's guess. Great demo tape does not have a great performance and vice versa. That's it.
Okay, so much for our club policies. As far as the China Club is concerned, I work with Chris Apostle, and Tuesday nights is our big band night, and out of the Tuesday nights I've seen bands get booked on weekends as well. I get about 10 to 15 tapes a week now, and the Tuesday has become pretty popular. And as far as working the Tuesdays, I work with Chris and we listen to the tapes. I get a written review back from Chris, and then I usually ask the bands to call me back and I'll give them the feedback, whatever it was. Basically, I would like to open up the floor for questions. I'm going to set up the microphone in the audience so you can come up and ask us all kinds of questions. And I just want to ask for one favor though from the audience. We've all had our bad days, and if there was somebody in the audience that didn't get booked by any of us up here, please, don't nail us down and get into this whole thing now, please. But I would like to open up the floor, and please come to the microphone and ask us questions, please. So anybody would like to ask a question? If not, I go to the audience and I will ask you questions.
The Wolfgang Busch Show. The Wolfgang Busch Show. Hi, I'm Damien Boucher. I'd like to know, country and country rock is on a big uprise. What clubs up here are going to be thinking about doing country and swing?
Well, I already do. I have a couple country bands that I do. A band called the Hang Dogs, very hip band, just in from New Orleans, and they do really well. I try to put 2 or 3 bands together. With them, I'll put one band that's similar to them, with another band afterwards that's similar. But I don't do strictly country, Like Dwight Yoakam, when he started out, he did strictly country on country bills in Nashville, and he got totally ignored. He started opening for glam bands in Los Angeles, and that's when he got signed, because those people were receptive to what he was doing. Was different. So I am booking country stuff, but it's in an alternative atmosphere rather than straight ahead country.
That question was to everybody else. Everybody wants to comment.
Well, we're doing Merle Haggard and Sleepy Louise.
Sure, all Sleepy's great.
I love
Non-stop
Sleepy.
rockabilly. Yeah. I got some friends who play your club, Lou Guru. Yeah, I'm in the same vein, but I've been sticking to Jersey. I used to play right here at the Roadhouse.
I can tell you how I discovered them, but it's a pro-drug story.
Oh, okay.
Good one.
You've given up since, right?
Tell it.
Okay. How much do you usually start a band out, money-wise?
$1 million.
Yeah, I know already. I just...
Well, most of our bands are national.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. So you do openers.
Is your band a national? Is it a new band? What's the background on your band?
Well, I was touring. This is a brand new band with the CD.
So you're talking basically exposing your band from scratch, and
yeah,
you basically have to deal with the following situations. You either get paid per pass. If it's a complimentary admission, you probably can make $1 on a pass. If you have a $5 admission or up to $7 or $8 admission, you probably can get paid between $2 and $3 on a pass or person. It depends. Huh?
yeah,
They charge $5 to $7 per person. You can make $2 or $3 a pass or person.
It's usually split with the club.
Yeah, the club will keep the rest. And that's how you start out. Once you have established a following, if you consistently have 100 people coming to clubs, that's when the word goes around that you have a kind of following. Believe me, up here, if something like this happens, we'll talk, hey, listen, these guys, la-di-da-di. And then once you have established a consistent following, you are able to get a guarantee money on a local level between $100 and $300. And you're talking stepping up a level from the pass deal to a guarantee. And then, of course, it goes higher once you have your record out and you start getting a decent booking agency and you start some serious promoting record and so forth. But I think those are like, when it comes to your level, you have to start out at the bottom unless you have a lucky gig situation, but that's pretty much what you have to face. I'm doing it for 10 years and I have to do sometimes past deals.
Well, the thing is, it's not, and you'll find this in the record business and everything. It's not how long you've been doing it, it's where you're at now, George Lynch with Dawkins was doing arenas. As soon as he came out with the Lynch Mob, he was doing small clubs, And he'd been doing arenas for 4 or 5 years selling millions of records, but that's not where he was then. So if you're starting out over again or starting out on a different thing, if you've been there, you'll probably be able to get back. But you can't expect people to go out of their way to help you get back. You got to get back in your own steam, working with someone. You know what I mean? As far as guarantees go, it's tough to guarantee bands anything. The guarantee that I make is that if you bring people, I guarantee you'll make some money. That's the only guarantee I can really make because we're not, we don't own banks or anything. What you get back is what comes in through the door. That's what we get too, is what comes in through the door. And it is like a bank in that if you don't put money in, you can't get money out. If one person comes in, there's no way I can give you $100 because one person didn't spend that.
And the reason why this is these days is because we've been burned too many times. We've done our Chumley? Well, I think he has an example for us.
Well, actually, you have to always remember whenever a gig is booked, you have expenses such as passes, Village Voice advertising, posters. I mean, the promoter pays for this, and a lot of times the clubs won't do it. They'll give you the room, they'll give you the staff, but you're the promoter, it's your responsibility.
Well, some rooms will give you the staff, I gotta pay for my own, man.
I mean, sometimes you're paying the back line.
Yeah, the back line.
Soundman.
Extra security if you have a big show. I mean, some of the cost gets put on the promoter. So, asking a band to do their part is not much. I mean, if a band has 4 people in a band, why can't they bring 10 of their friends in a paying situation to help that band? And that's 40 people right there. A lot of times bands work really hard to get the gig, and once they have it, they slack off. And it's just a glorified rehearsal for them, and they can get their friends in on the guest list. But I think it's really important. First impressions do mean a lot. If you do get a chance, do your best. And then it just makes it easier for us and easier for you to get more bookings. And just remember, it's not a cheap thing on the part of the clubs or the promoter. It depends on the rooms. A bar situation, you may not need security and a backline, but the bigger places that hold more people, the more prestigious type gigs, you know, do your best.
Harry, what's your experience as far as guarantee money?
As far as New York goes, 10 years ago, bands were booked strictly for entertainment. People went to clubs the same reason they climbed the mountains, because the clubs were there. So the clubs did not care what the individual band would draw. Unfortunately, 8 years of Reagan and 4 years of Bush have put us in a little bit of an economic recession where people only go out for a reason. If that reason being your cousin, uncle, brother, or grandmother are playing some heavy metal thrash band across town, that's why you go out. Otherwise, you'd stay home and watch television or rent a video. Guarantee means just that. If you can guarantee X amount of people, you'll get X amount of dollars. It's pointless for a promoter to guarantee an unsigned local band money without being guaranteed people will come to see them, because you might be the best band in the world, get a $100 guarantee and play to my staff, which does me no good, does the staff no good, does you no good. You're not exposing yourself to a different audience. You have to go out and basically grab your audience, and when your friends run out, that's the time when you start hitting the mailing lists, going to clubs, asking other band members, other band fans if they want to be on your mailing list, and getting out and hustling the people to your show. You've only got so many friends in the world. It's fans that actually break a band. And unfortunately, not too many of them are going out and getting new fans. They've gotten their circle of 40 or 50 good friends that will come to every single show, and they stop there. There's no point in that. If you want to be somewhere, you want to go somewhere, you've got to put a buzz out yourself. Promoters can only do so much. We advertise in newspapers, make up passes, flyers, radio spots, what have you. But the rest is up to you. Who's going to know on the street the difference between your band and anybody else's band unless you go out and tell them the difference? If you get to the point where you're bringing 150, 200 people from advertisement alone, you got your money. You can ask your own price as long as you don't play every other day in every other club and burn yourself out too fast. That's all I got to say.
Michael, with your national acts and your guarantee money, what kind of typical problem do you run into?
Well, there are so many talented acts out there, and figuring out which ones will draw can be bewildering. It's not a question of lack of talent out there. It's just that so few acts can be relied on to draw, and in these economic times, lots of tours get canceled, and we suddenly have to scramble to find something. Like we had 3 acts go down for the next weekend. It wasn't until Monday we found Earl King and Robert Ward.
I'd just like to say what Harry was talking about is 100% true. 6 years ago, when I started booking, I was managing the original Sanctuary on 8th Street. The club was packed. We only had to put in 2 bands a night, and those bands got an average guarantee of $250. But people were paying $8 and $10 to walk into the club. They got that money plus $1 a pass. Today the clubs are forced, because the economy is so different, where we're putting 5 or 6 bands on the bill, and half the time it isn't even covering the expenses. So we're only asking from our side that you don't really prostitute yourself too many times a week. You know,
A few times we can prostitute, it's all right.
just, if you play out every 2 weeks, you'll probably have a crowd coming. If you play 3 times a week, you won't. And then we can't book you again, because we have to answer to the owners. And if we don't bring a crowd, we won't have the club. And it's another venue that you won't have.
There's just one other thing. We're up here saying about how expensive it is for us to run our clubs. Believe me, we know how expensive it is to be in a band. I have been in a band. I do have a band. I know what it's like. And everybody up here, with the exception of Michael, has booked me at least once. And that was before I became a promoter.
CD available at Tower Records downtown. Jack's
Yeah.
look for it. I bought it. It was good.
That's true, yeah. But we realize it's $20 an hour for rehearsals. It's $40 or $50 every time you do a mailing list. It's all your phone calls. It's your transportation. That's why most of the promoters here, as well as me, we put backline, amps, drum kits, stuff like that in the room, so you don't have to spend $75 on a truck to get your gear down. The stuff you need to bring, like cymbals and stands and stuff, and your instruments, you can put in a cab. it costs you $10 to get to the gig instead of $75. The extra $65 you save, we'd rather you put that out on mailing lists and stuff and trying to get people in the room. I mean, we are trying to help you. We understand your costs. But like Theri said, we have to answer to the owner as well, or else we lose our jobs. And we have tremendous overhead that you don't see. And we just live off the door. I don't think any of us here, I know I don't, get a piece of the bar in any of my clubs. You know, so we live off the door. Same way you get paid, that's the same way we get paid.
Please feel free to come up to the microphone anytime for questions, please.
Hi, I'm Allie from Broken Sky. Okay, we've played pretty much around the city, like every club, and we don't play 3 times a week, and we do our mailings, and we do everything we're supposed to do in order to get everything popular. And we go down to the clubs, and some nights we bring in 50 people, some nights we bring in 10. And it depends on the night and situations and all that. Now my question to you guys is, you know, it's frustrating to a band in our situation when we go and we do all the legwork and we go into the club and we're playing to the same people, our fans that we're bringing in, and there's not one person that has come into the club per se, that's coming off the street because they know that this is a club to go to. And what I want to know is what can be done in order to make kind of like the club scene turn around a bit, get people to come out to the clubs because they want to go to that particular club, and not just because there's a band that's going to be playing there because they've heard of it, because they're your friends and they've seen you last week, and we're going to see you in 3 weeks, you know what I mean?
Well, one of the answers would be to pick a specific event where you know there's more going on than just your band. Like for example, the Tuesday nights at the China Club, I'm also a host, and I do also promotion on the side as well, besides booking bands. So from that point of view, there's always people in the room that are not associated with, let's say, your band. So, and there's clubs where they, you know, strictly make their living off booking bands, and like Thom is going to be very busy booking those 3 clubs, so it's hard for him to do a specific event versus myself. I do 1 night a week. I have a lot more time concentrating on one specific party than having to book 3 clubs. I'm using you term now. Yeah. So I think it comes down to that it's up to you to pick the event.
We've played Tuesday nights at the China Club, and we've been the first band. And we played that one night when we played at the China Club, we had 50 people come down. And our 50 people walked in the door, they saw us, they left, and we were hanging out because we knew somebody was going to be playing later that night. And around 11 o'clock, 11:30, people started to come in. But we were long gone. I mean...
Well, the next step after this is obviously you try to get a better time slot, and it's you know, we have to hassle to get the bands we want sometimes. So you need to hassle us to an extent to you know, make us say, well, we had 50 people at 9 o'clock. Now we feel to get some support from you, club, and put us on a better time slot, and you know, we can always open for discussions.
For the most part, though, I mean, the China Club is good because people do come and they know the name of the club, they do come in, but let's say, I mean, we've played situations where we show up at a club and there are 8 bands booked that night. And it's like a zoo, because you've got one band coming in here and one band's going up there, and all of a sudden they turn to them and go, you're playing 15 minutes, and you drag all your friends down, they come down and they get to see you for 15 minutes.
We know where that club is too.
Right.
That's going to remain...
But again, it's the event you picked, you choose to play.
But you don't know this before you play the club, do you? And you get down there and you
I
play.
know what club books.
Well,
How many bands.
my point is, you play those 15 minutes and you're gone, and your friends say, whoa, what did we waste our $5 coming in to see you for? We're not coming to your next show. I mean...
But why didn't you go and check out that club before you played and see what their system was and how they handle the bands? It means that you're not going out, per se, to support clubs. You're only showing up for a gig. Maybe you should associate with clubs that you would really like to play at, and become friendly with the people at the club and show them support, and maybe the club will then give you support, instead of just trying to get a gig.
Well, can I say one thing in defense of booking 8 bands? Because on weekends at street level, I do put 8 bands on. I'm not the club that you're talking about. You've never played for me, as far as I know. And I know which club you probably are talking about. I do put 8 bands on, but after watching audiences for like over a year, I realized that most people's fans will come in, they'll spend an hour, maybe an hour and 15 minutes. If you put one band on, like every hour, at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, they'll come on, they'll set up, they'll play, they'll break down. When they leave, their fans will leave. So what I've done is nobody plays for 15 minutes. That's ridiculous. But we do a half hour with a 5-minute encore, which means you do about 35 minutes. It's about 6 or 7 songs. If they don't love you after 7 songs, then I'm going to love you after 17. So if you can work within that time frame, what happens is, say you're the 8:45 band, all right? You get on stage at 8:45. The 8 o'clock band people are still there because they're going to spend an hour and 15 minutes. They've seen their band, they're still drinking their drinks. You've got 2 or 3 songs to win them over, so they'll stay for you. And then the 9:30 band's fans start arriving around 9:15. So you've got a chance for them to hear the last half of your set and win them over. So if you do it right, you can put on 8 bands in a night. It takes a lot of hustle on our side and a lot of hustle on your side. You've got to be ready, you've got to be prepared. Got to have your stuff ready to go. Very fast changeover. But everybody wins in the end because there's people from the beginning of the night to the end of the night, and you are picking up other bands' fans. You know, so it can be done. It just takes a lot of work on both sides. And in defense of 8 bands, I used to do it hourly. And since I've been doing it with a different system, from 8 till 2:30 in the morning, I've had over 150, 250 people in my room through the whole night. All the bands are happy. Even though each one only brought 20 or 25 people, they've had a chance to pick up other bands' fans. So you can do it. It's difficult to do, I understand it. But I know what clubs you're talking about where they say you're on at 12:30, at 3:45 you finally get on because you can only play 10 minutes. Yeah, but let's not diss other clubs here. Let's just say that it can work, but it takes effort on everybody's side. It works to everybody's advantage if you can do it. Because you'll pick up some fans, the room will be full, the bar owner will be happy, and I'll get to keep my job.
You should also research the market, basically go to the clubs and see what crowd goes to what club, what particular club audience would suit the music that you're doing and the crowd that you're trying to pick up. What other bands are playing along your lines and doing similar musical material on stage, and try and stick within that venue, break out within your particular genre before trying to win over the glam fans or the thrash fans, depending on what you are. Basically take it one step at a time. Win over your crowd, win over a bigger crowd, and then win over the other crowd.
Is there any other way that we as a band can tie in with a promoter in order to get something happening? You know,
It's difficult because for every 5 bands you book on a given night, there's 300 that you don't book. There's an abundance of music in the tri-state area. For every 1 band I would have put on a Friday night, there was like 20 I had to choose from. And that was just for one particular spot on one night. Bringing a band back is great, but then what happens to all the other bands that didn't get a chance to play on that particular night the following week? You've only got so much time in which you can put that time. And you have to squeeze as much as possible or as little as possible and try to be fair to everybody. There's a lot of pick and choose, a lot of coin tossing, if you want to say, as to who you put on and who you take a chance with. To align yourself with one particular promoter or group of promoters is difficult because if one person's going to do this for you, why shouldn't they do it for someone else? Why can't they do it for everybody? It's not that, there isn't that much to go around.
Also, there's another thing that I very rarely see bands doing, and that's designating someone to take a mailing list. You know, the band plays, gets off stage, picks up their gear, and leaves. Instead of having somebody walking around taking names, addresses, and phone numbers. Bands that take phone numbers, it's actually cheaper than postage right now. And you'll get a 60-70% response because it's a personal touch by making a phone call. And bands just don't think of things that they can do to help promote themselves.
Spend a quarter for a phone call or a postcard, you make $1 back from that club if they go.
There's another thing that I found with my band. that really helped us, and I know a couple of bands in the city that have done it. What you're really selling is the music. So if you have a really good demo together, get as many cheap copies as you can make. I would go down to Canal Street and buy like TDK G60s for 65 cents each, make my own copies, and put the next gig, the flyer for the next gig in there, and I'd make like 1,000. And I just would hand them out at the clubs that I was going to play on Friday and Saturday nights, and the peak nights. And that way, people hear the music, they see what you're playing, and they will come out and see you if they dig the music, because that's what you're really selling is the music. So get that in their hands first. Your name in the paper doesn't help, you know. This is Joe Blow. Well, I don't know Joe Blow. I don't know anybody in Joe Blow's band, and I don't know what they sound like, so why should I go? But if you get the music in their hands and they dig it, they'll come out and see you.
And I've watched bands take that even to another level, where they made the tapes up, but they've gone to concerts. And outside the concert, they've given people their tapes and passes, and that has worked enormously for them.
And I have an example also. I know of a band, they went to St. Mark's, and they had a little boom box, and they played their music, and as people were walking along, they heard the music. The people that loved it, they stopped, they took information from the band, and these people showed up at the showcases as well. So there is all kinds of ideas people take advantage of, and that works for them. Please feel free to come up to the microphone, otherwise I have to go out and ask questions, and that you don't want me to come out after you.
Nobody has any questions? It's your chance to learn the inside of the music business. Just don't ask me about that stuff.
How would you suggest bypassing mailing lists and if you're in a band, just bypass the whole process and go beyond it?
Getting signed on your first gig.
Stand back, give it 30 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, how would you bypass it all? Well, you get, like Harry said, you get signed your first gig, a record company put $500,000 on your promotion, and if it didn't sell, you'd be back out for another record deal, you know. You gotta have some kind of street credibility in that bands that come up from the bottom have a longevity, even if the record company drops them, they can still do something.
We have to remember, even Guns N' Roses played 100-seat rooms when they started.
I have a complaint about some of the clubs I've performed at. They're always so late in handing out the flyers for me to do my own advertising. How far in advance do you get your bookings, your flyers?
I've worked with many clubs, Donna, and I know, for example, the bigger clubs as well as smaller clubs that work on a weekly budget and weekly promotion. So that's why you never get your flyers 2 weeks prior to your gig. It's always a week or less. And that is one of the main reasons, because the clubs have a weekly budget and they always have to juggle within that. You can, you know, if you're always complaining about this, Donna, I would suggest make up your own passes and just bypass and take whenever the club passes are ready and distribute them on top of it, but make up your own passes.
You also have to see the point that even though a night can be booked as much as 3 months in advance, come 2 weeks before, at least 4 of those bands have canceled out at different points. When you're finally given a pass, and it has a lineup of 2 to 7 bands on there, depending on the night, it does not mean that when you were booked, all the other 7 bands were on the bill. It could have been a totally different bill. Bands get sick, hurt, they cancel, they break up, or they all run off to Ecuador and marry each other for all I know, and they cancel out as early as 2 weeks before you'll get notice, as late as the day before or the day of gig you'll get notice that the band is not playing. Hopefully it's like within a week before, if you're still running around trying to find an 11, 12, or 1 o'clock band, picking up passes with a non-existent band on the bill is ridiculous. It just goes to waste.
I was just talking to this fella here in the back, who seems to have a pretty a good suggestion here for mailers and for flyers and for postcards to let people know where you're going to be playing. And I always thought that it was going to be, you know, set out ordinary black and white stuff that just gets passed in the mail. He's got a deal here in full color for cards, for postcards, for color 8x10s. Somebody ought to talk to this fellow and bring him up here and let him tell everybody about it, because it's a great deal. The way bands can save a lot of money. And saving money when you're not making much money is a good idea.
Well, maybe that will solve all our questions. Maybe this gentleman should come up here.
Or it stimulates some questions.
Would not be by any chance Bruce.
Bruce Benson, ladies and gentlemen. Look at that right here in this audience. Amazing.
He's not your brother-in-law or something.
No, we're not related. Man? I am doing something that involves a promo kit arrangement. I started out with production credits. I have done writing and production with Kenny G and Larry Fast and some other people. And one of the things I realized is that it's impossible, or very difficult at best, for us to get out and promote ourselves. And the fact is, if we don't promote ourselves, nobody else is going to. The clubs are doing the best they can do. They're trying real hard, but it's just hard to do all the stuff that we as performers need them to do. I then got involved in manufacturing. To make a very long story short, I found a printer who really happens to think that musicians need a better shot than they've gotten. Therefore, we came up with a program which will generate 100 J cards. So if you're doing demos, as he suggested, at home, if you're making your own copies, if you send out a demo with your name written on it, your number scribbled on it, people aren't going to listen to it. People in clubs aren't going to listen to it. People in companies aren't going to listen to it. So the package, in fact, is 100 J cards, 100 business cards, 100 postcards, and 8x10s that all are done in full color. And I don't want to turn this into an advertisement, but just to say that I happen to be sitting in the corner. If you want to talk to me about after this is over, I'd be happy to talk to you about it, because if you want to make some noise in the business, you better get off your butt and do it yourself. And this is one way to do it that's relatively inexpensive and will separate you from the rest of the people out there trying to get into these clubs. Thank you, John.
One point that he was saying about the demo is that your telephone number should be on every single piece. Cassette case, envelope, everything. Even the stamp. If the stamp could include your telephone number, it would be great, because press kits and tapes and cassette covers do get separated and mixed up quite often.
Or sometimes put it in a case too. I've gotten a couple tapes now that weren't even in a case with no phone number. Yeah, a piece of paper and rubber band. Oh, you know these guys.
Oh, you got my tape, did you, Theri?
Anybody else? Please feel free, don't be shy. Anybody wants to hear about pay to play? Yeah? Anybody has any experience? If in the audience, please.
Be afraid.
1, 2.
Why don't you come up and tell us a little bit what happened to you, pay to play?
You want to come up and tell us what happened?
And who was it with?
Yeah.
And do you think it was good or bad?
First of all, we want to state that no one on this panel does pay to play.
That's correct. Let's see, we wanted to play, I believe it was the Cat Club. And, right, and they said to us, okay, no problem. What you need to do is you need to pre-purchase 100 tickets from us, which you're going to sell to your friends. You can sell
For how much?
Well, to sell to your friends for $10. But what we would do is we would let you buy them from us for, I think it was either $3 or $4 a ticket. And therefore, you sell your 100 tickets at $10 and you're making $7 a ticket. And I found this to be quite interesting, considering we were playing frequently for $5 to our friends, and we didn't have to pre-buy the tickets, so we turned down the situation. And most people that I've been talking to had been kind of pretty much networking about it, and everyone was like, hey, this club is doing pay for play, don't bother calling them up. And a whole bunch of us bands kind of got together and we stopped playing in these kind of places. And we never played there. There was another club also that did that. That was scoliosis.
Well, that's not. Well, the gentleman over here, you had an experience. You want to come up and share that with us?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I was booking a band called Some Weird Sin, and we were asked if we wanted to play the bank. We'd done a lot of the mailing and done a lot of the wonderful thing. Well, that's the club. It wasn't a Chumley night, and after that we only played Chumley nights because we couldn't deal with the situation. But they offered us a slot with the Aquanettas. Thought that was a good gig. They had their EP out, and then they told us that we had to pre-buy tickets, about 50 of them, about $7 a pop, selling for 10. And I said, I'm very interested in the slot. If we get the slot, that would be fine. I'll let you know about the pay-to-play thing. Let it slide for a while, so they couldn't put anything else in there. And I called back and said, well, we'll be happy to distribute passes. We'll go hang out posters. We'll call Bud band notes. We'll do whatever you want. We can't pay any money. And she's like, well, I go, no, I'm sorry, it's pay-to-play. We won't. I actually never said, call it what it was. She never called it what it was. And I just said, I'll take the slot. My band will do what they can. If you want us, it's pretty late in the game. I think you should take us. And we just played the bill and bypassed it by just sticking to our guns.
How did you do?
We did bad, really bad. It sounded awful in there, and there wasn't much in the way of draw. And the only good thing is that I ran into Chumley at the room, and he had us back on better nights, better compatible bills, and he does his homework. That's my story.
Thank you. Any other story we can share?
I don't have a story, so can I change the subject? Okay. So I have two questions. One for Slash, and then Mr. Slash, and one.
Just Harry.
It's Harry.
So if you could give us a rundown as to exactly what went down in Space of Chase, I think some of us would find it illuminating. I personally would like to know because you like my singer-songwriter. And the club ended its existence before he could play. So that was that's one question. I have a short attention span, so let me finish. My other question is to Michael, and it has to do with your interest in roots music. You say that you're interested in, that you mostly book national acts, and it's true. How do I get something to your ears? Where do you go that I can put this performer up and have him listened to by you? Not, your partners are fine, I mean you.
I go everywhere.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, when I can.
Honestly?
Honestly. I've been singing in 15 different clubs in the course of a week.
Okay. Deal.
My turn. What happened to Space and Chase was primarily, I guess you could say, greed. The owner got a deal that he didn't want to let go. And like most owners, having a deep-rooted fear that every single person in the place will rob them blind, regardless of how loyal they are to the particular club, he didn't bother to tell anybody. So a lot of you guys that may have been booked and got a phone call from me a few days after that the club closed, I'm sorry, but basically it was sold, changed hands. The owner didn't tell anybody until the last minute. That's the way clubs go.
The gentleman here had a question, I believe.
What I do is I book bands from other states. Right now I go from Boston all the way down to South Carolina. I have about 6 different bands. You've probably never heard of any of them.
Why don't you identify yourself?
I'm sorry, my name is Nick Van Ecton from Exit Enterprises. I've been doing this for the last 2 months, although I've been involved with music for about 6 years. I used to do techno music, but like a lot of people, I've stopped doing that. But I'm curious to know what I can do to better position those bands that nobody's heard of. How can I get them on a bill with a better known act? You seem fairly responsive to bands that you've never heard, but I'm interested in the rest of your responses.
Well, most of us bring in bands from all over the country. If we hear about a band, either from a record company or booking company, something that's hot in the state, they let us know about it. And we have no problem putting them on a bill. We'll try and sandwich in between bands with a drawer, or else we'll just arrange a showcase early for them. And if you have bands, you should just take our names and numbers and get in touch with us and submit them to us.
Up until this point, what I've been doing is I've been sending tapes randomly to, well, not entirely randomly. Okay, yeah, that seems like a good idea.
Well, it also helps to know some local bands who can put in a good word for you. If you know any local bands that do have any kind of scene going here, you know, if they could put in a word saying, hey, look, we know this band from out of town that would open up for us and they'd be really good at the bill, it would help.
The difficulty with what I'm doing is that the bands that I've been positioning vary their style from everything from rap to hardcore to jazz.
Right.
There's a group I've managed in the book called the Slackers, and they played. I got them to play the Steel Pulse ticket this weekend at Central Park, and that should help. But I mean, I wouldn't want to book them with either any of the jazz bands I've worked with or have the funk bands.
Is that the ska band, the Slackers?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had them in my room 3 times. They're a great band.
I'm glad you like it.
Yeah, because unfortunately, a lot of the audience that they brought was a little underage.
We're working on that.
Yeah. See, that's a very important point, though. I mean, the bar owners make their money from the bar. We'd love to put bands in that are under, 18, 16, underage. It's fine with us because a lot of those bands with one phone call can get their whole high school down. It's amazing, but I mean, I've had one band bring over 200 people.
When I used to live in Washington, D.C., you may be familiar with the band Fugazi, and their policy is to allow, it was very difficult for them to do this initially, but as a result of allowing all 8 shows, they make quite a bit of money, and I don't know if that's a situation you would be able to.
Well, yeah, the thing is, since the bar owner is not making anything from the bar, and clubs that have a legitimate cabaret license to be 18 and over, it can be done. But the problem is, we all have our clubs within residential areas, zone residential commercial. And what happens is when the neighbor who's 65 years old, who owns a condo and looks out her window and sees 150 screaming kids underage, she freaks out. Calls, the community watch department, which in turn calls the police. And although we're not breaking any laws, that kind of stuff, like complaints from the community board and stuff, to the liquor licensing control, people here, can get you closed. So you have to balance out, is it worth it to make a big killing one night and have underage bands, or not just get by and have your club stay open,
Well, my experience with the underage is that a lot of clubs have had some kind of problem in the past, and they just basically cannot afford any more problems like underage, and since they are serving liquor at the club, there's always the danger of these kids are drinking and you have some kind of problem, and I've worked at all kinds of clubs, and I know they're very scared of having these kind of problems. So, and it's a different situation. If you want to do an underage situation, you may be better off doing it at a school or some kind of community, cultural, event. You're better off going that way rather than a club that has no support for you, really.
In their particular instance, they are mostly college students, and one of them's in high school even, so the majority of my bands are older, yes. But anyway, I expect to take from this band.
Mighty Big? The other thing about the problem that we have as promoters of getting people in the room is that bands that are 18 to 21 can pack the place because all the kids are hanging out, they're going to college, they're doing all that stuff. From 21 up to whatever, after that, the older you get, the more your friends don't want to come out because they got married, they got a job in the morning, and they got to look after the kid. So the older demographics don't get the people out. The younger demographics can't play the clubs, even though they can get the people out. Since they changed the drinking age from 18 to 21, you can die for your country, but you can't drink in it. And I think that's unfair. It's definitely hurt the live music scene, and that happened long before I even came to America. But I think that's an unfair thing. Where I lived in Canada and in England, it's 18, and I think that is fair. If you can go out there and die for your country, you should be able to drink, and that would help the club scene, it would help the economy, it would help a lot of things.
We got a signal. We have time for maybe one more question, and then we have to start wrapping up. Is anybody on the panel that wants to leave us with some thoughts?
Well, I'm Muffy, I can say something. One thing that I've learned in having a record, in being signed, in playing the clubs, is that it's tough in the clubs. But the clubs, the way that the systems work in the clubs is a microcosm of the way it works for the record companies. As tough as it is in the clubs, it's twice as tough, or 1,000 times as tough, amongst the record companies. All right, everything works exactly the same. If you get signed and you can't sell records, which is like you get a gig and you can't draw people, you won't get another record, or you won't get another gig, you know? So the scene works directly proportionally. It's because there's more to lose and more to gain in the record companies, the chances are tougher to get those deals. There's not as much to lose and not as much to gain in the clubs, so it's easier to get the gigs. But things will work the same way. There are bands, like we have bands that maybe only bring 20 or 30 people, which we book continually, because they're good bands. There's bands that only sell maybe 200 to 300 records. They keep getting, you know, another release after that because they're good people and they sell enough to cover their costs. And there's the mega stars who, if they don't sell 1 million after they sold 15 million, get dropped, you know? So if you think it's tough now, it's 1,000 times tougher once you get through into the record industry part of it. That's what I learned anyway, having finally got a release.
The hard work begins after you get signed. If you think it's tough doing 1 gig a week in Manhattan, picture doing 3 gigs a week in a different state every night when the first record or EP comes out. A band I'm working with out of Cleveland just got signed, and they're leaving for a road tour, which they're doing a gig roughly every 3 days, about 800 to 1,000 miles apart, depending on the gig. I mean, they're going all over the country just to push an EP, and if they get off the road and have made $100 a piece before all expenses are paid, they're going to be real happy about that.
And that's the reality.
My name is Ray. Before Thom had said that if a band got like 15 or 20 people, that'd be good enough to come back another night on a weeknight. Just for the
I want to add something that's only maybe for his club.
Right, so that's my question. For the rest of you folks, what do you like to see? Of course, 100 people would be great, 200 people would be better, but if you're playing every week or a few times a month, you're probably going to be dealing with maybe 30 people each time or 50. What do you guys like to see?
For example, at the China Club, I'm asked to tell the bands a minimum of 40 people, which we not always get either, but that's pretty much the guideline.
Tilt has a capacity, the upstairs room that I'm booking, of 550 people. If a band brought me 25, 30 people, because I have a crowd that comes in later on, it's fine. You know, of course the club would want more, but 25 they'll accept, and you'll be able to get another booking.
Yeah, if you bring 25, and you prove to us that you're really working at it, that you've done your own little pass, and you know you made your phone calls, and you really made an effort. We see that, and we remember that. And you know, if the band works hard and they're sincere, you know, we'll give them another shot. You know? And we know you're up against the elements. If it's pouring rain, we don't expect your full following to be there. You know, and we're all up against that.
And also I would like to add something to be more creative when you do a gig, hyping up. Maybe you have for example, today I got a phone call, this band is putting out a record, and I said, oh, let's do a record release party. He said, oh, that sounds like a good idea. I mean, right there it tells me already who I'm dealing with on the other end. These people are totally uncreative, and, you know, try to pick something up, make a Mother's Day a party, or you know, just make up some kind of event to hype things up. And I see a lot of lack in bands. They just don't do these kind of things.
Basically, don't overplay and burn yourself and your audience out before it's time.
Spend your time more in the studio learning how to put on a show, not just play. Most of the New York bands, they're lacking in stage presence. You might have a really good tape, but the show is missing. You know, watch MTV, just get an idea of what's going on around the country. It's right there before you. Television's there. The show is lacking, mostly in New York.
Don't so much try and copy what someone else is doing. Develop your own identity and style as a band and work it to perfection. But don't work it to the point where every move is choreographed so that you're not stiff either. Play with each other to the point where you feel comfortable on stage with each other and you're basically performing to the crowd, not just to yourselves.
Okay, Michael is gonna wrap it up now.
Well, basically what we look for is an original voice. And that's what we look for.
Okay, in diesem Sinne möchte ich mich verabschieden von euch. Vielen Dank. Sorry. Harry, I don't want any else. No lips and looks, please. Thank you very much, you all, for coming. I had a great time. Thanks again for Emma, who's putting on the seminar. And please keep looking for us in the future. Thank you.
Good night.
If you want to see anybody afterwards, I'm sure we'll be hanging out. You can like give us your demos or whatever.
Or bribes. No.
Could also say that Zale and Dr. Dan's music show are both going to be appearing right now, starting with Zale.
It was more about booking.